Behavioral psychology. Behavioral psychology, also called behaviorism, focuses on observable actions rather than internal thoughts or feelings. Following the emergence of structuralism and functionalism, it became dominant in the early 20th century through the work of John B. Watson and later B.F. Skinner. They argued that psychology should be strictly about behaviors. Researchers in this tradition study how behavior is learned and changed through conditioning with reinforcement and punishment. Although the field is no longer as dominant as it once was, its principles remain widely used in therapy, education, animal training, and habit formation. Behavior can be measured, predicted, and reshaped under the right conditions. This principle shows that the field has left a lasting contribution in modern psychology. Cognitive psychology, the arch nemesis of behavioral psychology. Cognitive psychology studies the inner processing of the mind, including attention, memory, language, problem-solving, and decision-making. It became popular in the 1950s and 1960s. It was a reaction against behaviorism, which had ignored mental processes for decades. Researchers in this field often use experiments, brain imaging, and computer models to understand how thoughts are formed and how information is processed. The work by pioneers like Ulrich Neisser and George Miller influenced the modern view that the mind functions somewhat like an information processing system. This is why cognitive psychologists have been involved in the development of AI like LLM in recent years. Cognitive psychology matters because almost every human activity, from watching this video to making a major life choice, depends on the mental processes it seeks to explain. In the real economy, businesses tend to apply insight from this field in their operations, such as advertising, and those operations are often studied in the field of behavioral economics. Developmental psychology. Developmental psychology examines how people change across the entire lifespan, from infancy to old age. Early figures like Jean Piaget and Lev Vygotsky laid the foundation. They studied how children think, learn, and acquire language. Modern studies in this field look beyond childhood by exploring adulthood, tracking changes in cognition, emotion, identity, and social behavior, sometimes in association with genetics and environment. The field thrives on long-term studies, observation, and experimentation to understand both universal patterns and cultural differences in human growth. Its insights are used to improve parenting practices, educational design, and policies that support people at every stage of life. When applied in a real-life setting, the field is often referred to as school or educational psychology. Social psychology. Social psychology investigates how individuals think, feel, and behave in the presence of others. The field gained momentum after World War II, when researchers tried to understand how ordinary people could participate in extreme acts of conformity and obedience. Famous studies by Solomon Asch, Stanley Milgram, and Philip Zimbardo revealed the powerful influence of groups, authority, and social roles on human behaviors. Common topics in this field include attitudes, prejudice, persuasion, attraction, and group behavior. People often get confused between social psychology and a field in social science called sociology. The difference lies in the level of analysis. Whether it's focused on the individual within the social setting or the larger patterns of society itself. Social psychology is valuable because it shows how invisible social forces shape decisions, often in ways people fail to recognize in themselves. Clinical psychology. Clinical psychology focuses on diagnosing and treating behavioral and psychological disorders. It emerged as a formal field in the late 19th century, when Leitner Whitmer opened the first psychological clinic at the University of Pennsylvania in 1896. Practitioners in this field work with people struggling with conditions such as depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and trauma, often using evidence-based interventions like cognitive behavioral therapy and medication when necessary. This field overlaps with multiple fields: abnormal psych, counseling psych, positive psych, and health psych, showing the importance of mental health as a subject in the field of psychology as a whole. In comparison to those related subfields, clinical psychology puts its emphasis on serious and long-standing psychological difficulties and their treatment rather than on everyday challenges. Today, it remains as the largest subfield of psychology and forms the backbone of mental health care in hospitals, private practices, and community clinics around the world. Industrial organizational psychology. Industrial organizational psychology, often shortened to IO psychology, studies behavior in the workplace. It was born in the early 20th century when companies began applying psychological methods to hiring, training, and improving productivity. The field is usually divided into two sides: the industrial side, focusing on selecting and evaluating employees, and the organizational side, which examines leadership, motivation, teamwork, and workplace culture. IO psychologists conduct research that shapes job interviews, performance reviews, and organizational change. So, basically, your HR people's best friend. Their work expands our understanding of the relationship between quality of work life, both employee and employer, and institutions. There is also the athletic field version of this field called sports psychology. Forensic psychology. Forensic psychology applies psychological knowledge to legal and criminal issues. Work of professionals in this field includes: evaluate defendants for competency to stand trial, assist in jury selection, profile offenders, and testify as expert witnesses. Criminology is often studied together with this field. The field grew through the 20th century as courts began to rely on psychological evaluations in custody disputes, criminal cases, and civil matters. Forensic psychologists work at the strict intersection of psychology and the legal system, which means staying unbiased is a crucial part of their work, especially when reporting to the court. The way the modern justice system handles questions of intent, credibility, and mental state has improved along with the advancement of this field. Behavioral neuroscience and neuropsychology. These two fields study the link between the brain, other parts of the nervous system, and behavior. For example, researchers explore how neurons fire under stress, how the hormone system, known as the endocrine system, interacts with the nervous system to influence the mood, and how brain structures associate with memory, emotion, and decision-making. Historically, researchers also examined people with brain injuries or neurological diseases to learn the function of a specific brain parts, like the famous case of Phineas Gage in the 19th century, where the guy miraculously survived a metal rod piercing through his brain, but later exhibited a significant personality change. In recent years, the field has expanded rapidly with advances in brain imaging technologies. Those technologies, like EEG, MRI, and fNIRs, allow scientists to observe the living brain at work. Findings from this field improve both the diagnosis and treatment of neurodegenerative conditions and psychological disorders. By grounding psychology in physical processes, this field also works as a bridge between the field of psychology to other scientific fields like biology and chemistry. As you can probably guess by now, all of the subfields and related outside fields often exchange knowledge and cooperate for research, and sometimes create a new subfield. Psychology is probably the only subject where humanities and science subjects truly interact, making it one of the most fascinating subjects to study. Let me know your favorite psych field in the comments, and please leave a like and subscribe.